Institute, or MVLRI. The goal of MVLRI is to expand Michigan's capacity to support new learning models, engage in active research to inform new policies in online and blended learning, and strengthen the state's infrastructures for sharing best practices. MVLRI is a division of MVU, or the Michigan Virtual University, which is a nonprofit organization whose mission is advancing K-12 education through digital learning, research, innovation, policy, and partnerships. MVU is also the parent company of Michigan Virtual School, a supplemental state-sponsored virtual school. Michigan LearnPort, an online professional development portal for K-12 educators and personnel, and MyBlend, a blended learning initiative providing K-12 schools with resources, products, and services to personalize learning options for their students and improve student achievement. Before we introduce today's presenters and get to the presentation at hand, just a quick disclaimer. This webinar will be recorded and shared publicly. Consequently, anything shared during this webinar, including chat comments, could be shared publicly. This webinar may represent a presenter's or an attendee's personal views, opinions, conclusions, and other information which do not necessarily reflect those of MVU and/or the Michigan Virtual Learning Research Institute and are not given nor endorsed by MVU/MVLRI unless otherwise specified. Today will be the first in our four-part series on virtual school research needs. These webinars provide a way for K-12 online learning programs to introduce themselves to the research community and share their research needs to encourage collaboration for moving the field forward and improving practice. The series started from discussion among members of the Virtual School Leadership Alliance, which is an association of the chiefs of multiple virtual schools that provides collegial support and collaborative opportunities for its members and member organizations. For that reason, we wanted to acknowledge the Alliance and direct you toward their website for more information. That information can be found at www.virtualschoolalliance.org. Quick introduction of our presenters today. First, we have Ryan Gravett and Jeff Simmons. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing anyone's name incorrectly, of the Idaho Digital Learning Academy. Jeff Simmons is the instructional manager for IDLA. Jeff has served as a teacher and administrator in the field of online learning since 2002. Prior to working full-time at IDLA, Jeff taught social studies and English at two different alternative high schools. He has a BA in social studies and English education from Northwest Nazarene University and an MA in education leadership from the University of Idaho. Jeff lives in Nampa, Idaho with his wife, son, 3 dogs, and 1 cranky cat. Also from IDLA, we have Ryan Gravett. From local district implementation at the school level, data integration at the state level, and online learning, Ryan has shown his passion for education technology. As a technology director for the past 9 years of IDLA, he has helped shape the direction of online learning in Idaho. He has a bachelor's in psychology, numerous technical certificates, has won a statewide award for supporting technology in schools, and is currently finishing up an MBA from Boise State University. Outside of his passion for seeing students grow, he is looking forward to another Fiesta Bowl win for Boise State, playing Nerf Wars with his wife and 4 children, and eagerly anticipating the Hobbit Marathon this coming Monday. That sounds pretty fun, I'm not going to lie. We also have Cindy Hamblin, who is the director of the Illinois Virtual School. In 2009, with the support of the Peoria County Regional Office of Education, Hamblin submitted the winning proposal to manage the statewide virtual program. IVS offers supplemental online courses for students in grades 5 through 12. Since 2009, Hamblin and her team from IVS have built a professional development program within IVS and new credit recovery options for students. Prior to her work at IVS, Hamblin was director of the Area 3 Learning Technology Center. She assisted school districts with technology plans, one-to-one state initiatives, professional development, and other programs to support educational technology in K-12 schools. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Education and a Master's in Instructional Technology and Telecommunications. Lastly, we have Dr. Joe Cozart, who serves as the Associate Director of Strategic Planning for Georgia Virtual Learning, which is a program of the Georgia Department of Education. In this role, Dr. Cozart oversees all research, policy, surveys, analytics, long-term planning, and marketing. He has been with the school since 2005 in a variety of other roles, including course development, teaching, teacher training, and teacher supervision. His current research focuses on adaptive learning environments, predictive analytics, and motivational factors in online learning. Welcome so much to our presenters. Welcome to our attendees. With that, I will hand it over to the team.
Great. I just want to do a second audio check here. We switched microphones, and hopefully you all can hear us. Excellent. Thanks for all the feedback. We're excited to be here today, and I'm just quickly looking here on how to change my own slides. I'm not sure if I can do that or if I'll just call on you to do that. All right, looks like I can do that on my own. All right, so scrolling up and down, it's a PDF. Perfect. All right. So fantastic introduction. Thank you so much. I am really looking forward to that 9.5 hours of the Hobbit Marathon, which I am totally excited about. Jeff, it's good to have you here in the office too, and I know that you're going to start us out today, right?
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Jeff Simmons. I'm the instructional manager for Idaho Digital Learning, and we'll just give you a real quick overview of IDLA and what we do. So we are the state virtual school for the state of Idaho. We've been in place since 2002. We are a course provider for any student enrolled in a public school in the state. We do work with all of the public high schools and charter schools and middle schools in the state. And we provide courses in a variety of formats. That's something that we'll touch on in a couple of slides here. We also, in addition to providing courses, we have a blended learning program through which we help schools devise blended learning solutions to help meet their needs at the face-to-face level. We also have a variety of services that we provide. One thing my team provides is professional development, not only to our own teachers, but also to other educators within the state. We have a programming team on Ryan's team who has been able to work through some state partnerships and create some technology to support some other state initiatives. So really, we when we go out to schools in Idaho, we talk about ourselves as a partner with the school, because truly that's what we're here to be. Is not just a course provider or a resource, but a true partner with the school in helping all of our students in the state succeed. So we have a few items that we want to touch on today, and I'll touch on a few of these, and I'll have Ryan touch on a few of these as well. So there are some general research needs that we have as an organization, and these are our main areas that we'll touch on. And maybe we can skip ahead to that first one on the actionable data. That's one that I added in here. So one thing that we have a need for as an organization, being an online school, we have access to a ton of data. We have data in our LMS, we have data in our SIS. We have lots of data points available to our teachers and our principals. And one thing that would be helpful for our teachers is to be able to really leverage that in an actionable way. So as a teacher, you can present me with data, and that's good information and that's nice information, but to really take advantage of that in my role as a classroom teacher, I need to be able to see what I can do with that and know how to implement it. So when we talk about actionable data, one of the needs that we have is something that we've discussed here in the office in predictive analytics. So something similar to like when I'm shopping on Amazon and I go to order a bag, and then it says, oh, well, you might be interested in this laptop case too, or something else that somebody else that bought this bag liked this also. So something that it's something similar to that with my students. So it somehow some way to leverage the data that we have in our SIS about our students, so that as a teacher it can help me make predictions about my students and their potential for success. And certainly we wouldn't sell that as, hey, give up on this kid and focus on these kids, but really helping the teachers better identify where their students are, where they're coming from, where their needs are going to be, which students do we need to target for interventions early. Those type of things are data points that would be really, really helpful as a classroom teacher. The other thing that we talk about is data that provides correlations and data that's descriptive. So descriptive data is helpful in identifying students. So maybe through our SIS, through our LMS, we can identify identifiers about our students and say, these are the characteristics that are characteristics of a successful online student. These are characteristics of a student that will struggle with projects. These are characteristics of students that will struggle using voice tools, that kind of thing. That's helpful in that it's descriptive, but what's more helpful is creating correlations between those descriptions. So if this, then that. That's the type of data that would also be helpful and actionable as a teacher. So if I have these characteristics around a group of students, then that's likely to lead to some outcome. And if I can see that as a classroom teacher, I can figure out what action I need to take. And ultimately, these are things that teachers are going to pick up on as they teach a class. As they go through the class, they learn their students. They learn which students are struggling with what. They can apply interventions. But through the use of data, we can get there quicker. So that instead of getting to the intervention phase by unit 2 or 3, I can already be on unit 1 and realize who I need to start putting some extra time in with, who I need to send additional resources with, who I could put on a more advanced path for learning, those types of things.
Yeah, let's bring this a little bit real, Jeff, and maybe talk a little bit. One of the findings that we found, for example, is that females in our courses perform better than males. And that's a fantastic example, I think, of exactly what we're talking about. If we deliver that information to a teacher, what can they do with that? Not much, right? I mean, there's very limited information that you can say. You cannot change a student's gender to make them more successful in a class.
Not a recommended strategy.
That is not a recommended strategy. If that is a recommendation of research, we're going to have some challenges. So really what we're looking for is just what you're talking about, and that's actionable data rather than data that is informative. Maybe we can change some strategies around how we teach to students or teach to certain subpopulations of students, but that's the research we're really looking for, not for the research that comes forward and says, hey, females perform better in your classes than males do.
Yep, absolutely. So the descriptive data is helpful in defining a program, defining your student profile, that kind of thing. But from the teacher perspective, which is the lens that I usually come from since that's the side of the organization I work with, that giving me something that I can do with that descriptive data, somehow applying it is much more helpful.
Yeah, and so an example would be, why do males perform worse than the females, and what strategies could be implemented to help those students succeed would be much more informative to us than just having that data information.
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
We have just some other general research needs that we have. I can talk about some of these, and Ryan, if you want to talk about some of these as well. It's always helpful for me to be able to visualize data sets. I know sometimes I'll sit down with Ryan or one of our researchers, and they have lots of statistics and numbers, and they're making correlations and comparisons to things that I probably covered in my college statistics class and then never touched on ever again. And so again, a good way to visualize that, whether it's in graphs or charts or a data dashboard, those are always things that are helpful. The more visual the data is, the easier it is for me to absorb that and immediately move into action. So those are types of things that are helpful for us. It's helpful for us to look at our traditional population sets and try to identify, just different descriptors about our population that we serve, where are our students coming from, what's their background, those types of things. Projection data is really, really difficult for us to do. We have multiple course models, multiple delivery models, and we are a demand-based organization. We create classes as we receive enrollments of students for those classes. So we have the need to then project what classes are we going to need, how many teachers are we going to need for each class, those types of things. And the different variety of models that we have is really good for meeting student needs because we have a multiple variety of student needs, but it makes it difficult to then project what's each year going to look like. So data that can help lead towards that is certainly something that would be helpful for us.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's complex, right, Jeff? I mean, you wish that it was something like just a traditional linear regression model to be able to predict some of those types of things out, but it's not that simple. It ends up being things where there's all sorts of conditions that are in play, whether it's teacher certification to be able to teach a class, or it's teacher past performance to be able to teach a class, or teacher attrition in certain subject areas. I mean, there's all sorts of variables that you have to consider for, and we really just haven't had a chance to model those out.
Yep.
And really come up with some great data or algorithms to identify some of that information.
Yep. I think these other 2 bullet points on here were yours, Ryan, the A/B comparison and effective course structure and student navigation on our student success. Do you want to add any to that?
Yeah, well, you know, there's this great thing about behavioral tracking and the idea of student behaviors and how those go throughout the course. And so course structure and student navigation and student success is something that each online organization does differently, you know, and I know that we have a different structure than Georgia, who's here, than what Wisconsin has. And we have theories that underlie those. You know, we have education technology theories that underlie the direction that we're going in course structure and a rationalization for that. But we haven't ever had data to really prove out what type of course structure really does have an impact on the learning and how does that have an impact on the learning. And so I think that the course structure is an interesting topic, and each institution does it differently for different theories, but we really have never had research that proves out, you know, those different structures and how those different structures do that. And even with ourselves, we have 2 different programs, a flex program and a cohort program, which I'm not sure if we're going to get into details on, probably don't have time on, but those 2 different programs have different course structures. And so understanding the value of those different course structures and the impact on the student learning, I think is important.
And on the type of learner too. You know, it would be very valuable to know which types of learners respond better to which course structures. That would certainly help us better guide schools as they place students in our courses so that we can get them in the environment that best equips them for success.
I think the A/B comparison of similar courses really has to do with, you know, this is again an alliance-wide type item, not specifically just IDLA, but you have the opportunity with a bunch of different organizations to be able to A/B comparison what the difference between our economics class, which is fairly universal across the United States, how does that economics class look like to other economics classes? How does the information on that get conveyed? What's the impact of that information? What's the outcomes that are being evaluated? Just A/B comparisons. There's a lot, not just in the content of the course, but really the outcomes of the course and other things to tease out of those. There are courses like that that are fairly consistent across the United States. And I think that there's really interesting research that could be done on those because they are similar in content outcomes that are expected.
We move on to our next slide. Just moving back to more of an organizational level, you know, another thing we always have a need for as an organization is just validation of what we're doing. And so research to support that is helpful. And one area for us that we have a need in is just some different models. So Ryan just mentioned we have the traditional cohort model that we've offered since 2002. Everybody starts at the same time, ends at the same time. There's due dates throughout. Everybody's on the same pace. That's the traditional, however, quote unquote, traditional online model that we've implemented. But since then, we've messed with it a little bit because we realize that there are a variety of student needs. So these are some of our different models that we've been working to develop over the past few years, but still have a need to really, outside of student completion data and student mastery on a final exam, we really need to be able to show the validity and purpose of those models. So our hybrid model is a play on the cohort model where instead of all content being completely asynchronous, there are regular synchronous sessions throughout. Right now the students meet 2 days a week live with their teacher through a video conferencing network that we have available in our state, or they can leverage a tool such as this, like Adobe Connect, to have regular synchronous sessions. We have a co-teaching model that we've been implementing this year that focuses on language learners. So in this case, we started with a science class. We have a science teacher paired with a language teacher and trying to help students meet both science objectives as well as language objectives throughout the course. We have a flex model, which is an open entry model. Students have a rolling start. They can start whenever. They can self-pace throughout the course. It's a mastery-based model. There's not as much collaboration. in the course. Throughout the course, the students are taking assessments. Those assessments have the ability to exempt them from content so they can focus on what they need. They can use projects and teacher discussion assignments to show higher level mastery of those concepts. And then we have, I put a choose your own adventure concept on here. We're starting to play with the true mastery format in our courses where students would enter into the course and be on the same pacing, but their content in the course would be driven by their mastery of assessments within that course. And then the other thing I put on there was just, from my side of things, it's helpful to know on the professional development side, how does our professional development help lead students to success? So the quality and quantity of our professional development to teachers, what's the relation between that and increased student outcomes? That's always a difficult one to correlate, so that would be an interesting data point as well.
I think that it's important to point out, because I know there's a lot of post-secondary researchers on this call, that one thing that is unique in IDLA and a lot of other K-12 organizations is very different than online learning in post-secondary organizations is the institutional control of the structure of these. And so, in a post-secondary institution, really the professor has a lot of, or generally has a lot of control over the structure of a course, the delivery of a course, and the methods of learning in a course. And really, I think in our organization and many of the other organizations on the phone call today, we have a very rigid course structure and a very rigid content structure as well that applies to all of our courses, regardless of who's teaching them. And that's why when we talk about these models each have their own structure. As a quick example, all of our classes are structured into 8 units. Each unit takes 2 weeks of coursework to complete, by which there is a pulse of the progress at the end of those 2 weeks that are sent out to parents and students. Each one of those units contains discussion boards. Each one of those units contain ways of assessing content knowledge. And so, that structure is there across every single one of those courses in that model. So I think that there's some opportunities there, and it's good to discuss kind of the differences, I think, between some of the K-12 control over some of that learning process versus some of the process that goes on at the post-secondary level.
How we're doing on time. I did see that there's a question there about, can we track behavioral interventions in our LMS? Currently, the way that we would be able to track behavioral interventions is in our SIS at a student level. If a teacher was assigning an intervention for a student, did a tutoring session and had to do a phone call, that kind of thing, they have the ability to document that on a per student level. We can set privacy on that so that only the teacher and the principal of the course can see that, or the assigned individual attached to that student at the local school as well. But that's about the level of sophistication that we have to track that. It's not something that's utilized in our LMS.
Right. So course tracking in terms of click tracking and things like that does go on in the LMS level. So every time a student clicks a link, that is tracked by the LMS, and then we aggregate and pull that in. So of course, hours in the system can be utilized through timestamps and of those click patterns, but tracking offline work is always a challenge in any online institution, especially if you have them reading Hamlet or something like that. How do you track that time? So we do track that time. You can utilize algorithms to predict some of the offline hours that are being done and things like that, but yes, timestamps on every click and click tracking. Blackboard tends to be a little bit not as consistent as we'd like in that tracking, but there are elements that are consistent. So the research there is possible. Moving into business. Yeah, that's right, Susan. It's not just Blackboard. So business research, coming from a little bit of MBA background recently, I've identified a lot of interesting things from a business perspective that I think apply to online learning as well. And this gets into the factors of cost and efficiencies. Really, what is the cost effectiveness of different models? What is the cost per outcome? So really, a lot of times, I think a lot of our research focuses on the outcomes that occur as a bit as in relation to the models, but I think cost can be really entered into a factor in some of these. What we found is that some models are much more costly than other in terms of manpower or resource costs or licensing costs as opposed to others. Some courses are much more expensive than other courses. So the question really becomes, as we factor cost into some of these things, how does that impact some of the business items of the organization and how we deliver courses? Cost per outcome, impact on automation versus interaction. A good example of that is multiple choice questions is a great way to create some automation, save some teacher time, but how much does that cost in terms of outcomes versus an interaction of an essay question and getting that evaluated by a teacher? Very big difference there. Work complexity versus skill. A lot of times there are items that a teacher is doing that are not complex items. And historically in classrooms, we used to have that teacher doing all that work. In online learning, we could potentially separate the work that was what we call click work, like opening a unit or closing a unit, things that aren't currently automated that a teacher has to go through and check boxes or things like that, and split that out. Are we matching the skills of a teacher or skills of the right individuals with the complexity of the work that's needed? And I think there's some research to be done there. Effort per course, how much effort is really being done per course? How much time is being spent per course? Some initial findings that we found is that a teacher will spend 4 times more time on a physics course working through that and teaching that than we do on one of our health courses. And really understanding more about that and the implications are very interesting.
And I think that's an equity issue too that we struggle with, not just online but face to face. We pay the PE teacher the same as we pay the English teacher.
Yes, we do.
And our PE teachers work really hard, but I know that our English teachers are taking essays home and grading them in the evening. So for us, we would like to be at a place where we can assign an equivalent workload to the PE teacher and the English teacher if we're compensating them in an equivalent manner as well.
That's right. I think that it's very well understood that special education students in the regular traditional setting end up costing a school district more to support because of the needs that those students has. The question is are there costs associated to the different segments of students, and do those apply online in the same way that they apply in the face-to-face place organization? Are those consistent across there? Student and customer patterns, really background and survival analysis. This is traditional business analytics and BI, but what makes a student take another class moving forward? In our case, students have full option about whether or not they take another class with us. We don't have that student and do not have a captive student. That student has choice in what online institution they choose, as well as whether or not to take a future class. So what's the impact of that, and how can we evaluate that? Attrition in course and between courses, really that gets down to some similar things, but we have dropouts mid-course or in the first 2 weeks of the courses. We allow a drop without penalty. There's about a 10% drop that occurs. Why are those drops occurring? What's the impact of those drops, and what's going on there? And between courses, of course, when they transition from, we have a first semester algebra and a second semester algebra. What's going on when the students do not sign up for that second semester algebra? What's behind some of those patterns? Again, business-related intelligence items. And then teacher patterns, teacher attrition, and satisfaction index. Since we're low on time, and I know that I was just given the 5 minutes thing 6 minutes ago, I'm going to skip to the next slide here.
You have -1 minute.
I do have -1 minute. So really technology impact, this gets down into really the technology the student has. Does the device or the operating system that they have make an impact on their classes? What is the impact of a student utilizing assistive technology like JARS or some of those other assistive technologies? Is there an impact on the connectivity and the bandwidth that a student has and their success in online classes? Is there an impact of the home environment and the environment that the student is taking the class in on the outcomes? We've seen initial indications that there is some correlations between some of these, but really not had the time to flesh out the details. We track technology issues. On average, a student has 1 to 3 technology issues in our classes. What's the technical issue? What is the impact of that on the performance of the student? What is the impact on a performance per subgroup? For example, we found that students that are struggling or credit recovery classes have a much harder time getting past a technical issue than a non-credit recovery students. Is there evidence to support that? What can we do about that? Modes of technical support and impact, there's chat, there's phone calls, there's all sorts of methods that a student can gather technical support. How important is it that they have an immediate response? What's the impact if it's delayed? And then expectation versus implementation. What's expectations of technical support, and is that being met? Finally, really talking about the learning system and navigation and impact of additional logins. Sometimes there ends up being a whole bunch of different logins that a student has to use to access all the digital resources that we provide. Is that having an impact on the learning? Is that a barrier that needs to be addressed and is worth investing in some single sign-on architecture? So that is technology impact items. And with that, we're going to hand it back. And hopefully we didn't go too far over, Justin, and we'll be willing to take questions.
No
Whenever
worries,
you
guys.
want us
Thanks.
to.
Sure, yeah, of course. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to send those guys a private chat. That would probably be best. And then if we feel like you'd like to share it publicly, you can also do that in the public chat if you think it'd benefit the rest of the group. So again, since we're a little pressed for time, I want to hand it over quickly to Cindy. Cindy, take it away whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today, and thank Catherine and her colleagues from the Research Institute for making this available to our state virtual schools. I think it's important to share what's going on in our programs and then seek help from all of you in the research committee to help us answer some questions that we have. I took just a little different approach in my presentation. I'm going to talk about the virtual school, our program, also bring in a little bit of aspects about the landscape of online learning in Illinois. I think we're very different from Idaho and Georgia. Just share our differences and then take more of a general approach of some of the questions we have that we'd like to hopefully see if there's some research can be done to assist us. So again, I'm from the Illinois Virtual School. It is a program that's funded through our Illinois State Board of Education. Funding doesn't totally cover our operational costs, so we do, in addition to the funding, charge a per course fee. Illinois has one of the older state virtual schools, as I understand it. First students were enrolled in January of 2001, so we've been around a while. In 2003, our state board decided to put up their program to a contractual program. So twice now, 6 years each, the program has gone out for an RFP for competition. And as was mentioned in my introduction, we did write for that bid or that RFP and were awarded the contract in 2009. So this is our 6th year in providing the Illinois Virtual School program. We see our mission aligns directly with the state board's initial goal, Goal 1. Ensuring that every student will demonstrate academic achievement and be prepared for college or career. We market ourselves as that alternative, that supplement solution available to students, families, and schools to ensure learning potential is met. So we too value that word partnership because we do work closely with the local private and public schools. We work with a variety of students, as many of all the virtual schools do, from the very small rural communities that just can't offer an extensive course catalog. We can then be that supplement to that school for offering AP courses, enrichment courses, and then we also service those kids that aren't being as successful in the face-to-face school, that really need the opportunity to retake a course to get back on track. So what does IVS offer? Let me change the slide here. We provide access to courses not offered at their face-to-face, as I said, advanced placement, foreign language enrichment courses. We actually have 23 different AP semester courses that we make available to schools and have 6 different world language opportunities: Spanish, French, German, Latin, Chinese, and even Arabic, which is our newest language that we've added. We have schedules that offer flexibility through non-traditional start times and summer school opportunities. So we don't have just a fall, which would be your August, September start of a course, and then again in January, and then again in June. We actually have 14 different term start dates throughout the year, each of those lasting 17 weeks. So students literally can start any month of the year into a course. We do offer credit recovery options, and course content is available 24/7. As I mentioned, we are a supplement program. We are diploma granting. So again, that partnership is key with our local schools. Change the next slide. So there's 3 types of services that Illinois Virtual School offers. We have what we call our full service online courses. Each of those courses has a Illinois certified instructor facilitating the course. In our catalog, we have 147 different semester courses, so we feel we have a pretty robust offering of full semester courses, and all of those are NCAA College Board approved. We did just start last year a new credit recovery online solution, which is more prescriptive based. Students come in, take a prescriptive pretest to really map out the deficiencies that they yet need to achieve in that area where they previously had failed a course. And then we also have, which is new since we've taken the contract, professional development program. So we have a number of professional development opportunities for Illinois educators. Our thinking there is more to the fact we built it and now come to us with your content. So we just make our platform open, platform being our LMS, and our registration system for educational groups in our state to come in and build content and deliver through us. Oops. So right here, you'll see that I do have this year's snapshot from Keeping the Pace. I thought it was important to talk just a little bit about what's happening in Illinois. We are a big state. We're one of the 10 largest states in the U.S. We have over 2 million students, 128,000 teachers, over 800 districts, and almost 4,000 schools in our state. So we have a lot of small schools throughout the state. Of course, we have Chicago Public Schools too, which is huge, as you all know. However, even with our size and the fact that we've been around since 2001, our state is very slow to embrace online learning as a learning option for students. We feel we're lagging behind many of the states, like Idaho, like Georgia, in updating policies at the local level or legislation at the state level. In fact, if you look at the snapshot that I have here, you'll see that all we are offering in our state is supplemental at the middle school and at the high school level. There isn't, other than 2 charter schools, there's no really fully online program available for students. There is one in Chicago, but you have to again be part of Chicago to even apply for that. So in addition to that, you'll see in the little purple mark there, I mentioned our state is not really pushing online learning. In fact, we have currently a moratorium on any new virtual charter schools coming into our state until the end of 2016. So again, a lot of work in our state to move online learning forward. So with that, I did want to share how IVS is doing. I think the lack of emphasis on online learning keeps us from really growing at the level we should. I can tell my slide didn't transfer very good. But you can see in the last 6 years we've grown, but not near at the capacity that we could in Illinois with the number of students and the number of opportunities we could offer. So this last year we really did have a boom of 20% growth, but we're still under 4,000 enrollments in our program. So how I took the research interest is just knowing more about our state and where we are as far as online learning. The first one is something we've been grappling with for some time. What are those key hurdles that exist in policy and our practice that inhibit the growth of online learning in Illinois? We've been doing a number of small focus groups, just asking schools, is it the readiness of your teachers? Is it the readiness of your community? What's your current policy and what are the limitations? So we're doing that in small chunks, but nothing has really been the answer, if you will, or the one reason bubbling up of why really we're stuck in not as much opportunities being available. We're, as I said, a supplement program. So another area we struggle with is how do we show growth in student outcomes? Since we have students come in and out of our program, is there a way to design a study to really test these student outcomes when we just have them for such a short period of time? We want to be able to show that. We are doing some pre and post in some of our courses to just show somewhat of growth within just that one course, but would like to go further in being able to demonstrate that we are making a difference in the outcomes for students. And then we're always talking about quality and again, trying to relate this to the student outcomes, but we know there are other skills and knowledge, I said they were soft skills, that students do gain from taking online courses, whether that's just being able to be more self-directed, time management, even some development of technology skills. We'd really like to include those findings in our repertoire of how we talk about Illinois Virtual School. So that's a little bit about IVS, what's happening in our state, and some areas of research that we have an interest in.
Great. Thanks so much, Cindy. That was very succinctly stated, and I think there are definitely some good opportunities for further research, and I think a lot of our researchers here would be interested in pursuing some of those opportunities. So again, thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
Lastly today we have Dr. Joe Cozart from the Georgia Virtual Learning and the Georgia Department of Education. So I'll hand it over to Joe.
Thanks. I appreciate everyone being here today. We definitely value that research community, and we're excited about the chance to hopefully work with some of you. So just briefly to understand where our school's at in relation to the others that you've heard about today, we're also a supplemental state program. We don't award course credit. We don't graduate students or anything like that. But in terms of single, like a student taking one class with us, over the course of a school year, we have about 30,000 students, and we've been growing about 20% per year. So definitely plenty of students there. And right now we're middle and high school. Most of our students are, if you want to kind of picture our most typical student, they're a public school. They're taking a class in the middle of their school day, and they're taking it because their local school either doesn't offer the class or there was some type of schedule conflict. And in particular, about half of our enrollments end up being world languages, and then we also have a lot of AP courses. Georgia is, to grossly oversimplify, we have Atlanta and all the resources of the metro area, and then it's a very large, very rural state. So one of the core reasons we exist is to kind of try to level that playing field, to give students at a smaller school the high-level courses that they would get at a larger, wealthier school. So anyway, you can see our staff breakdown there as well. Most of our teachers teach full-time in a Georgia public school, and then they're with us, on kind of nights and weekends going through that work. So in terms of research needs, these were a few ideas I came up with. I thought Ryan did a great job of coming up with his brain just kind of goes there, coming up with all types of ways where you could jump in. What I've thrown out a few here. We changed the way we design courses. Every year we're tweaking something, and some years they're very major. Maybe we try a really new tool, or just the overall way we're setting up assignments, how many assignments we have. It would be great to have someone coming in and looking, because the courses, I don't change every course every year. We aim for a 3-year revision cycle, where every 3 years a course would be done. Honestly, though, with the way budgets vary and enrollments, some courses may be 5 or 6 years old. So I'm offering a class that's developed the way I knew to develop classes 5 or 6 years ago. And so there's a good opportunity to see, well, what type of outcomes happen, especially the year I first roll out a new class. What type of student outcomes did we notice happen differently with that new design of a class? And then another big one for us is teacher training. And a similar idea, we've really changed how we train our teachers, especially on that pre-hire side. They now go through their own kind of open online class. They earn badges and areas of skills that we want them to have. And I've got a teacher information system full of all their monthly and semester evaluations, their scores in different areas. It would be great to have a researcher interested in that area to kind of mine through that data and see trends, help us evaluate how effective our new models have been, things along those lines. So those were some questions that came to mind to me right away. There we are. But what I really wanted to take a few minutes to do is just help you know what type of data we have available. Because honestly, I think a lot of you are in the research world even more than I am. You're the pros, you're the experts. If I give you the data, I'm hoping you will come up, you've got your own questions, your own ideas. You can hopefully do some really interesting things with them there. So obviously I can tell you all types of demographic information, final grades. One thing along those lines that Ryan kind of got into, this idea of bandwidth and equity, I think that there's a really good opportunity, because again in Georgia that's a major concern. We have students in the rural areas. There are all types of federal maps we can pull up to see the percent of students in each area that have access to high bandwidth. So it would be interesting to see what effect that is having on their grades. Again, teacher evaluation scores, not only, I threw out the idea of looking at our different training models, but honestly I can imagine a researcher just knowing that we've got this database with all these different teachers, and you could see what are their levels of education, what are their years of experience face-to-face and online, and our teaching rubric, you can see what are their scores in 9 different areas of teaching, what subjects, and there's just all types of potential there to come up with some really good teacher quality findings, I think. On the analytics side, we use Desire to Learn for our learning management system. We have their analytics package, so you can do some nice visualizations inside there. Provides huge amounts of data that that's kind of the recurring theme here. I have access to all types of data, but I'm a one-man shop as far as our research team goes. So it would be wonderful to have people interested and willing to kind of help pull through some of that data and see what we can put together. And then one interesting thing we've added recently is we've linked into our state's longitudinal data system. So it would be possible to see, I forget, maybe it was Cindy who was speaking about looking at the students, how are they doing in general at their face-to-face school historically, and then what part are we playing in that process. Now that we're a part of our state's longitudinal data system, we're able to see their previous test scores, attendance records, grades in their previous classes, and so it would be possible to put together some type of prediction based on the type of student they were on how they should be doing in the online class, and then of course we can maybe compare it to how they actually did. And kind of like what Ryan said along these lines, it would be, I think, great to know too, we're going to get students, whether they're a great candidate for an online class or not, increasingly just students are coming from all different walks. It would be great to know, are there certain classes we can put them in, are there support structures that we can put in place that are going to let them be more successful. There's been a lot of research outlining what a great online student looks like, but what can I do to help the student who's not a great online student kind of become better? So anyway, those are some of the big data sources we have access to. If there are other ideas or questions you have, you can ask me, and there's no doubt all types of other types of data that I can get access to. My day ends up getting sucked up a lot more data requests from different stakeholders in the state. So I spend a lot of time putting together data and reports for people, more so than actually getting to analyze it and research it. But again, I could certainly be a part of, I'd love to help you with your own research. Maybe you could help me in analyzing some of that data. As far as any type of approval process, if you're doing a formal study, there's a link. Maybe someone who is able to talk and type at the same time could put that in the chat window, make it a link. Or, oh, look at that. Because you guys did it a PDF, I guess it is a link. Anyway, you can, you can go there, and it's fairly straightforward. One nice thing, even though we are in our State Department of Education, they let me kind of be the gatekeeper with research, so we don't have to get into the humongous state guidelines of all those things. It is a pretty simple process if you choose to do any research at Georgia Virtual School. And then you can also see my email there if you want to be in touch and have any other ideas there. So quick and easy on my end. Hopefully that gives you some ideas, and I'd love to talk to you if you've got your own interest as well.
Great, thank you, Joe. Some great ideas, definitely some great data sources that you have to work with there. So hopefully we'll have some productive collaboration between some of the folks from these virtual schools and some of these researchers. Thanks again, everyone, for attending. Thanks everyone who presented. We did want to mention our next webinar, which is upcoming. That would be this coming Tuesday, December 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be the second part in this 4-part webinar series, and we'll have Rhonda Eschliman from the Indiana Online Academy, who I see is in attendance here today, and Steve Kosakowski from the Virtual Learning Academy Charter School. So we'll be exploring some of the things or ideas that they have in mind for some of the research from their own perspective as well. We also wanted to direct everyone to the full list of our upcoming scheduled webinars so you can register for them in advance. I believe Catherine is going to be posting the links there in the chat window. And also, if anyone's interested in becoming a guest blogger for us, we do have a guest blogger initiative here where we invite folks to write up a blog post for us so that we can push it out through our own audiences. And also, we have an MVLRI Fellows Research Fellowship program. So we'll also have, I believe Catherine will be posting the link to that as well. So if you'd like to read up about our fellowship program, see how that might fit into the current work that you're doing. If you're interested in applying, take a look at those links and send us an application, or feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you might have about any of those initiatives as well. And lastly, we just want to encourage anyone who is not currently following us on all of our online platforms. If you'd like to reach out to us via email, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Those are our handles right there. If you have any questions, anything that we can help with, or any feedback for us on the webinar process in general, we are always all ears. Thanks again so much, everyone, for attending, and I hope everyone has a great end of their week. Take care.